What is that noise?
Please mute your microphones unless you're speaking. Thank you.
That's better.
All right. Now you're going to show us who's... Donna, you can shut the video off. We're just going to go with audio tonight. Be patient for a minute, folks.
Carl, we're getting an awful lot of feedback, and it's almost impossible to hear anything.
Same problem here. We're working on it. We'll wait a couple minutes, I guess.
The number ending in 00 that called in is the one that's showing as where that sound is coming from.
The person with 1200 identify themselves.
Oh, Carl, just got that.
Let's test the system once more. Is the audio any better now?
It's a little better.
Just a little. Okay.
No, it sounds much better.
Much better. All right. Could each of the commission members in turn let us know who's with us tonight, please?
Jen's on.
Okay. Thank you, Jen. I saw you. Are you there?
Yes, yes. Can you hear me now? I am
Yes.
here.
That's better. Thank you, Donna.
Okay.
Who else do we have this evening?
Bob Laflamme,
Who's that? Bob?
yes,
Thank you, Bob.
yeah.
Do we have any
John-
other?
John Catel's on, although I'm not on the board.
Any other commission members? Bill Spencer, are you with us? Dan, are you with us this evening?
Bill was with us just a moment ago.
Isaac, are
Was
you
his-
with us?
Was this the number you asked to drop?
Bill Spencer?
Okay, Bill.
Is now exiting.
Oh, he's exiting. All right. All right, it appeared. Thad, are you with us this evening? All right, it looks like we have Jen, Donna, Bob, and myself present. That gives us our quorum. Are any of those, let's see. Are any of those, do we need to, are those all members? All right. Okay, we're gaining on it slowly. Thank you very much for your patience. The next step is the Pledge of Allegiance, if you would, please. I pledge allegiance to the flag, United States of America, and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Thank you once again. This evening we have Jessica Townsend with us. She's our new Wetlands and Zoning Enforcement Officer. I guess you'll all get a chance to meet her at our next regular in-person type meeting, but she's with us this evening.
Welcome, Jen.
Also, this evening, when you make comments, you're going to have to give us your name before your statement so that we can identify the person speaking, please. Thank you. All right, under old business, we
Bill
have,
Spencer?
Is now joining.
under old business, we have our first application is 1654, 336 Old Waterbury Road. There were some revised plans submitted and a site visit was done a couple of months ago. Is the applicant or the applicant's engineer with us?
Ron Wolf is present.
Thank you, Ron. Would you like to give us a description of what the changes in your plans were since the visit
Sure.
out there?
Sure. Since the visit and the previous meeting, it was probably back in April maybe. At the meeting, we were requested to add an inspection manhole on the stormwater gallery system, which we did add to the plans. And we were also asked to submit a maintenance plan for the stormwater system, including the drainage structures and the stormwater management area and the infiltration trench, which we did submit prior to the May meeting. So all that stuff is in your file.
And that's the extent of the changes from the previous previous plan?
Yep, those were the items discussed at the previous hearing. Yes.
Any questions or comments from commission members?
This is Donna. I just noticed that in the site visit report, it says there's going to be a small amount of pavement that falls within the 100-foot buffer zone. Is that going to have any, or during construction, are there going to be stormwater management practices? Like how much is in the 100-foot buffer zone? Do we have to worry about any kind of erosion or Any impact during construction?
Within the 100-foot buffer zone, there is construction of a water quality basin, an outlet, some of the associated piping from the driveway that goes to the stormwater basin. There is a portion of a pad and a storage shed. Maybe a third of that is within the 100-foot setback, and that appears to be pretty much the extent of it. The backup, there will be a little bit of work removing the existing septic galleries, which will be right on the border of it. That seems to be pretty much the extent of it.
Okay.
Do you have a follow-up question at all, Donna, or are there questions from other members?
No, I guess, you know, it would just, hard not having a picture.
It is.
So,
I,
as
I
long
can-
as,
I can try and share my screen if you'd like. I'd have to turn my camera on probably, but I could give that a shot if somebody thinks it would be helpful.
Donna, did you have a look at these plans previously, or no?
no, I guess,
I think,
you know, I'm just,
I
just
think,
wondering what the impact will be during installation of it all.
I will say the soils are very well drained there, and we wouldn't anticipate very much runoff at all, just because the soils are so permeable, and we have silt fence along the entire perimeter of the disturbed area, just to contain if there were any sediment migrating, it would be collected by the silt fence. And then the other thing is the grades are very shallow, very flat also. It's not like we have any 2-to-1 slopes proposed where you get a lot of erosion like that.
Okay.
let me read the site visit report I wrote for this property in an effort to kind of remind everybody of what that was about, because that was in February. So the applicant is proposing to remove an existing home and replace it with a 6,960 square foot multi-unit apartment building. The wetlands on site consist of Bullet Hill Brook along the southern border next to the highway and a small pocket wetland near Old Waterbury Road at the northwest property line. It would appear that the wetlands associated with the brook are contained to the watercourse itself, as no other notable features were observed. Regulated activities appear to be confined to the construction of the stormwater management basin and a portion of the storage shed. A small amount of pavement also falls within that 100-foot buffer zone. The property is relatively flat and consists of a long-established lawn. This area is no doubt an area previously used for agricultural purposes. There are some mature trees primarily along the existing driveway and around the house. There is some grading required in the area of the existing building, and the applicant has stated that no stockpiling of material would take place. So I thought I'd do that as a memory refresher.
If I could just add one more item.
Absolutely.
It should be noted that the whole site is primarily lawn and, taller grass now. So that's also a good, a good method of, if there are any migrating sediments, you have a long distance of grass there for overland flow before it gets close to the wetlands.
Thank you. Carolyn did send, I believe, the stormwater management maintenance schedule along with the packet that she sent earlier this week. Were there any questions or comments on that from commission members? I'll take
No.
that as a no then.
Yeah.
Further questions or comments? All right.
Well, actually, I hate to prolong it, but this is Donna. The drainage system is privately owned and maintained. So if it's ever sold, it's going to be part of it's going to be an apartment unit, right?
Yes.
So, as long as whoever's supposed to do the operation and maintenance is, well, they said it was going to be a licensed contractor. As long as it's something that is well known and is if it's ever sold, it's handed on as well.
I think in the past we have, do we track those, Carolyn, on a yearly basis? Do we, no? Commercial? So this is not considered to be a commercial application? All right, to this point, we haven't really tracked,
Bill
I guess
Spencer.
you might say, these type of
Is now
applicants
exiting.
as far as the maintenance goes. This applicant has a number of similar properties, I think, which we haven't had any complaints about the maintenance on, so I wouldn't expect it to be a problem at this location.
Okay. Yeah, I guess it is private. Like, how do you get them to, just thinking ahead, if we have other types of applicants like this, and I guess we have, how do we, is there any way to enforce this operation and maintenance schedule?
I guess we could ask for a report when the maintenance is done, if you like. Well, that's what I was asking, I guess, but not to these. Carolyn has other applicants or other permits out there where she asks for a yearly report on the maintenance. Yeah, we could do that with this as well, if you like.
Yeah, let's do that.
You want to do that? All right, so we will
Is now joining.
add that to the draft resolution.
Thank you.
Further questions or comments from other commission members?
Oh,
Yes, Bob?
nothing, I'm good.
Any further comments?
Not on this, but can you guys hear me? It's Bill Spencer.
Yes, we're having some difficulties, but we're... Bill?
Yeah, it's kicked me off 3 times so far.
Apparently, the problem may be that you have your computer on and your phone on. Is that possible?
Yeah, that's possible, because that's what I'm doing, because I don't have a speaker for the computer.
You have to mute one of them, evidently, because it
I don't
may
have
be-
a speaker on the computer.
doesn't have speaker on the computer.
I mean, I don't have a microphone, I have a speaker.
Can you?
Well, you're getting feedback from your speaker, I think, so just mute your speaker and then you can just hear and talk into the phone.
Yeah, that's what I just did.
All right, let's continue. Let's see if we can get through at least one application. All right, so if there are no further questions or comments on this, I will make a motion then to approve according to our modified draft resolution, application 1654. So we need to call a vote. We need a second, I guess, next.
I'll second that, Carl.
And that's
Bill
Bill.
Spencer.
Was that Bill?
Yes.
Okay, thank you, Bill. Any further questions from members? All right, would you please give your name and your vote?
This is Donna, and I say aye.
Bill Spencer, aye.
Bob is aye.
Jen, I.
Isaac, aye.
And I'm voting aye as well. need to seat Isaac.
Can you hear me?
Yes, bear with us a second, please.
Isaac, aye.
Isaac is aye. Jennifer,
Yes, I was I.
you're aye as well? Okay.
Yeah.
All right, I think we got it. Thank you very much. The motion carries.
Thank you all.
Application 1655 Winship Drive, Heritage Village, River Garden. This was an application by the village to maintain an area between the Pomperog River and the golf course and the gardens over there. There's a strip about 30 or so yards wide that was grown up mostly with invasive species that they wanted to clear and then hopefully maintain going forward in the future. We also had a site visit out there earlier in the year. Any questions or comments on that application from members?
Yeah, Carl, this is Bill Spencer.
Yes,
One
Bill?
of the things we discussed while we were there was having them, or asking them to remove some of the invasives along the riverbank. And I don't know if that made it into anything.
Well, we did discuss that on site. As I recall, the fellow was kind of non-committal to that, that line of thinking, and the berm along the top of the river there is kind of causing, making sort of a natural border there. That
It is.
that wasn't really part of his application, so I'm not sure how we would do that exactly.
Okay, I'm not real cranked up about it. I just thought it'd be nice while they're out there to cutting down all the other olive, to cut down some of the stuff that's overhanging the river. But it could be difficult because it's quite steep.
Yeah, I'm not sure. Logistically, that might be kind of problematic for them. They were trying to brush hog most of it, and then there was a couple of larger bushes were going to pull out with a skidster or something like that. I'm not.
Yep, I remember, I was there.
Yep, I'm not too sure how they would manage to do that you're talking about on the bank right above the river there?
It's probably not worth worrying about, just let it go.
Yeah, I mean, that's a problem up and down the whole river, so I don't think we can really make them do that at this point.
As I said, it's not worth fighting over, let it go.
All right. Questions or comments from other members? Okay, if not, I will make a motion to approve application 1655 according to our draft resolution.
Jen seconds.
Thank you, Jen. Any further discussion? Okay, name and your vote, please.
This is Donna, and I'm I.
Thank you.
Bill Spencer,
Aye.
aye.
Was that,
Bob, aye.
Spencer, aye.
Spencer, aye.
Isaac, aye.
Isaac, aye. Carl, aye.
Jen I. Jen I.
All right, thank you. The motion carries.
Thad's not here, right? Thad never said.
Okay, our next application is 1656 Kryten Subdivision. This one is new to at least me. There was a site visit out there. Donna and Thad, I
Yes.
believe, went on that one.
Yes, we did. So if you want, I'll just summarize what I wrote.
Yes, please.
When we got to the site, Mrs. Kryten told us that, there were two parcels. One has their house on it, and the other parcel has a possible house. They're subdividing it, they're selling off the one parcel. Her husband died a few weeks prior. And she wasn't even aware, like, she seemed a little bit confused, like, she wasn't quite sure why a permit had to be
Obtained,
submitted
yep.
because, obtained, right, because they just wanted to sell off the lot as is. So she wasn't quite sure why, and they were going after an application.
I see.
So, yeah, but, even if they were, maybe I should have included if they did cut down some of the brush to improve the sight line for the future driveway, it really wouldn't have an impact on the nearby wetlands. But I don't know why her husband applied for a permit. I don't know if they were planning on doing the work, but he made it clear that it's going to be sold as is.
Well,
And he was a little disappointed that they had to spend a lot of money on the permit application.
well, unfortunately, the process is that this is a re-subdivision of a parcel, so it needs to go before planning and wetlands, basically at the same time before it can legally be separated, and then she can legally sell it. So that's the reasoning behind it.
Okay.
But that's not in the application though, is it?
I'm sorry, say again?
It looks like they're applying to do some brush clearing, not to approve the subdivision. I don't see enough information in here to say, yeah, that's okay, we don't disagree with the subdivision.
Bear with me 1 second, please. Say that again, I can't. Okay. So, yeah, so I guess their application with us is for clearing vegetation within the sight line of the road, within the buffer area of the wetland.
Right.
So, Donna, what's your thoughts on the activities they're proposing there?
Yeah. They're only cutting down brush. Now that I understand it a little bit better, so I guess they will have to go ahead. It's okay. So cutting down the brush, there's going to be minimal impact, as long as they're not excavating anything. They're just cutting down brush. I mean, they could just take, those mowers that have the long sidearm and cut down the brush next to the road.
Yeah.
That's pretty much all they need because it's right up against the road. So there's minimal impact. It's not like they're going to be they're just cutting it down. It's not like they're removing it.
Okay. That sounds good, but what we have here is a re-subdivision plan with a proposed house and grading and whatever associated with the house, so I would think that if we're approving this application, we're approving this print. So although it states in the application that they just want to remove brush for the sight line, essentially we're approving this site plan for the whole property.
Yeah, that I was not aware of.
Okay.
I really just thought it was just clearing the brush along the road.
Okay.
And
Well-
I didn't realize that we were also looking at the footprint of the house and possible septic system, where that's going to go.
Okay,
honestly, I need to look at the site map
That-
again.
I mean, that's completely fine. I'm not calling you out on this by any means,
Yeah,
believe
no.
me. It's just that there's a little discrepancy between their description in the application and what they've submitted, so I just wanted
Right.
to make everyone aware that it appears to me, though, that we would be approving, the construction of a new building on this property. I'm looking at it, and I'm not seeing a whole lot of impacts, really, or incursions into the regulated area, per se, so I'm not really seeing a big problem with it. Did you,
Yeah,
Carl,
did
it's Bill
you,
Spencer.
did you all get copies of this plan in your packets as well? No.
No.
You
It was
didn't
in the
get this one.
email.
Okay.
They got a PDF.
You got this as,
I emailed the PDF to them.
you got this as a PDF? All right.
Yeah, Carl, can you hear me?
Yes, Bill.
Okay, it looks to me like we have a conflict between the application and what's submitted, and this is going to require at least another site visit
Yeah.
so that we can look at this in totality. Donna was not advised that this is basically a subdivision application,
Okay.
so I don't think it's appropriate for us to vote on this at all.
Well, that's completely fine. I think what we'll do then is we will table this until our next, or our next meeting.
Yes.
Does this sound
And we
appropriate?
should have schedule a site visit in the meantime.
All right, I'll make a motion to table this until our next meeting, and we will schedule additional site visits in the interim.
This is Bob, I'll second it.
Okay, Bob, thank you. Name and your vote, please.
This is Donna, aye.
Bill
Bob,
Spencer,
aye.
aye.
Bill, aye.
Isaac,
Bob,
aye.
Isaac, aye.
Jen, I.
Jen, aye. Carl, aye. Thank you. All right, let me fold that one up. All right, our next application is permitted activity 040 West Flat Hill Roads, lots 1, 2, and 3. This is a fairly involved application, even though it's coming in as a permitted activity. I have been out there. Thad, Bill, I think you were out there.
Yes, I was.
Let's see here.
This is Thad. I was out there too.
Okay, Thad, let me see if I can, give me 1 minute and let me see if I can come up with this, our site visit reports, and I'll kind of go through those if I can. Here we go, let's see. I have one report that I wrote, and I have one that Bill wrote. Handy. I don't know if there were any more, but I have those two. So let's start with those. I wrote that the applicant has applied for a number of activities related to the future use of the property for agricultural purposes, specifically equestrian activities and hay production. There are proposed activities related to clearing vegetation, grading, the construction of fencing and a barn, and recommissioning a spring-fed well. The applicant would also like to change the delineation of a wetland and fill said wetlands. Please see the attachment with explanation from his soil scientist. By visual examination, I would tend to agree with the conclusions of that report. This area is the subject of a cease and desist order issued in October of 2019 for non-permitted activities. And those activities were in the area of the wetlands that they would like to change the delineation on. Some of the proposed clearing activities may be beyond what could be considered a matter of right for reasonable agricultural purposes and result in a negative impact not resulting in net gains of usable or maintainable property. That was my opinion. At the site visit, the applicant showed us a site plan which was not a part of the application at the time of this report. I would expect to see that submitted for review prior to our decision. Let's see, Thad wrote, let's see here, couple of comments. He didn't realize that there was a house that went with the property. I thought the two adjacent houses fronting on West Flat Hill Road were separate from the property we looked at. The landowner described them as interior lots. I just thought the driveway leading out to the small barn was a right-of-way to the interior lots. Let's see, what else does he have to say? Lastly, I thought that we had discussed the dead trees along the stream bank with the landowner, and he had agreed to cut the trees but would leave the root balls and some feet of the tree trunk intact until sometime in the future when the trees he would plant would stabilize the stream bank had matured sufficiently to keep the banks from eroding. Also, we discussed him having temporary wetland markers put in to be replaced by permanent markers once the heavy equipment was finished and out of the area. Let's see, Bill's report. Let's see, I have, let's see if I can kind of paraphrase this a little bit. It includes a proposal for a horse barn and some other buildings. The application covers 3 lots, 2 under common ownership and the other owned by the applicant's father. The entire property, except for the area where the house is sloped. The house is at the upper end of the slope. The property has a cease and desist order on it. We discussed that. There are 2 other wetlands lower down the slope, one of which appears to be a seep, possibly dug out at some time. The other was not visible due to the massive underbrush growth. There is also a spring house and defined water channel related to an artesian spring. The owner has begun to remove the underbrush from the property, and there are obvious marks from heavy equipment and piles of debris with partially burned wood in the excavated area. The owner advised that plans to remove the brush and invasive species, remove all trees, remove the root balls, do modest regrading to make the property suitable for horses. He further advised he's applied to the state for a grant to help with the restoration, that the work would be completed in 2020. He indicated he planned to do the site work, then apply wood chips or other stabilizing material and a meadow mix. The area which was a primary issue of concern for the cease and desist order with the excavation near the house. The bowl near the house appears to have been marked as a wetland. The applicant has cleared the area and was using it to burn debris. Applicant wishes to fill in the bowl and regrade close to the original contours consistent with the rest of the property. Visual inspection did not indicate this as a high-quality wetland. The area has apparently no permanent source of water. Below the bowl is what we were told is an artesian well or seep with a distinct channel with running water. The applicant advised that he plans to leave that alone except for removing invasive plants, dead trees, and root balls, and he would remark the wetland boundaries. The other visible wetland and seep noted above is also overgrown and would need to be fenced and marked. The third wetland is not visible at this time of the visit. This plan appears to be quite ambitious. There are some shortcomings, including there are no designated storage areas for brush and debris, nor for soils that might be brought to the site. There are no wetland markers left. There is no phasing or schedule for the brush removal and site restoration. The plans call for all root balls to be pulled out, including those along the stream. There are apparently no plans to plant any trees. There is no real schedule for any of the work and no contingency plans if the work, particularly stabilization, cannot be done before winter. There does not appear to be any detailed plans about what to do with the wetland area, which is not accessible during the site visit nor the seep. Since the application applies to multiple lots with different owners, all owners would need to sign the application or provide written consent to the plans. All right, those are Bill's comments, mine, and Thad's. Now, I understand that there has been some changes or additions to that application since our last gathering. Do we have the applicant with us tonight?
Yeah, I'm here.
Okay, thank you.
Yep.
All right. This is gonna be a difficult application to go through under the conditions tonight. Can you give us a synopsis of the changes that you've made to this application since we've had our site visits out there?
Yeah, no problem. This is Peter. This is the owner. I submitted an application or another, basically another addendum to what you guys talked about, and I believe I covered everything because I'm trying to work with you guys. So I guess some of the major changes is that particularly the dead trees at the bottom of the hill. That I originally said I was going to remove the root balls. I agree that that's not a good idea. So I put in writing that I will just cut down the dead trees because they are a hazard, but I'll leave the root balls in. That was a major change. I do agree that if it makes you guys feel more comfortable for me to put up wetland flags and labels after the work is done, I think I'm more than happy to do that. I have no problem with that. Another major change is that I drew a number of maps to kind of depict a lot of the things, and one of them was I showed the work to be done in 1 acre sections, and I labeled each section and I have it over top of the whole property layout. I also showed where the burn piles are going to be, where the fill drop off will be. And then the other real major change is that, which is what I also agree with, is that since there is wetlands around that culvert coming out of the well, that's probably not very farmable area anyways. So, and I knew that, I just didn't put it in explicit writing, so I apologize. But I mean, that area is depicted on the map, and you will see that it just shows there's anywhere from a 10 to 30 foot buffer around the wetland watercourse, that it will just be common wetland vegetation, such as like grasses and flowers of that sort. So, and the idea is for me to stay off that bit of property as best I can, just so I don't have to disturb it.
All right, couple other changes which I believe I read in your description. Originally, you were talking about putting the fence line right at the top of the stream bank that runs up and down through your property, and now I think on the advice of one of your people, you've now moved the fence line back 30 feet from the riverbank. Is that correct?
Yeah, because I think it'll be better for the wetlands and for myself, because I do need to have room behind the fence to be able to maintain it. So I moved it in quite a bit to really give a buffer between the wetlands and the fence so that I can maintain it. Not that anything's going to go back there other than myself, but.
And would you do the same thing for that lower wetlands that's completely overgrown down there? Leave that material in place and then put a fence about 30 feet or so out away from the wetlands? Is that your plan with that as well?
No, so the plan on the, I don't know if you have the paper that I submitted, but I think you do?
I do. Which sheet are you speaking of?
If you go to page 4, the last bullet.
Okay.
That section of wetlands, it's very questionable if it is wetlands, according to my soil scientist. And although it probably has some slight attributes, it is a good half an acre. So rather than fencing it entirely off and letting it grow over with invasives again, I included it in the fencing, as you can see on one of the drawings, and the horses are just going to be kept off that area as the seasonal wetness happens.
Now, are you talking about the lower wetlands down on your western property lines?
Yes. Yep. Yeah, it's the bit of wetlands that I haven't touched because I don't have my permit to go there. But my soil scientist did go down and through the prickers, and he did see that it was not, it wasn't a very high value wetland. So he suggested the best practice would just be keep the horses off there.
Well, I would agree with that. Are you still intending to clear the vegetation in there?
Yeah, yep, yeah. Yeah, I mean,
And what would the purpose of doing that be?
just
And how would
to pick
you
up more-
how would you maintain that going forward? Because you can't really go down in there with a brush hog or anything. So how would you propose to do that?
It is actually, you can go down with a brush hog once you, if you look in the back, there's a steep section right where I stopped brush hogging. But then as soon as it goes down, it does level out. And you can see that in the gradient map. It does kind of level out where the wetlands are. So once you clear out, you kind of have to go almost in from the side, not going down into it. And then it would just be very lightly mowed once or twice a year, just enough to keep it from growing woody plants again.
I'm not too sure about that part of the proposal. Have you included a planting plan? Is that what this also represents attachment 4?
Yeah. I mean, it shows. Is that the map where it shows the buffer around the wetlands watercourse? And there's
It shows a lot of green circles, which I'm assuming are trees you intend to plant?
yeah. I'm not much of an artist.
Well, that's all right.
Yeah. So I don't have a lot of money, but I did, at some point I might want to put trees up. So I figured that would give me some privacy as well as stabilizing, and it would look good. But that was my plan, is to put trees, and it's well off the wetlands. It's probably 50 feet off the wetlands. And there's actually not really any fencing around or in going through any of the wetlands at this point. It's just there's going to be a section that you can see that where the horses can go if you let them. They could walk around that small area, but other than that, they're away from the wetlands. And I also that little pond, that it's not much of a pond. It's just I guess it's a pond, but I have fencing around that. That's the only real part of the property that has standing water for most of the year.
Yeah, that would be at the southwest corner of your property, that one?
Yep, yeah. I think that's a good idea to fence that off to protect that area as well as the horses.
Okay. All right, I think that this is an involved enough application that we're going to have to table this tonight so that you can come in and we can have a discussion where everybody can kind of be looking at the plans and make sure that we're all on the same page for this one. And I think there's going to be a number of questions from the commissioners about this. Carolyn, would we need an extension from this applicant?
I think I had on the first page, May 5th. Yeah, we need an extension, but he can come along.
All right, we're going to need an extension from you. Are you willing to do that for us?
Yeah, I guess I have no choice.
Unfortunately, under the circumstances, I think that's probably the best thing for you.
Okay.
Would you agree to do that for us?
Yeah, no, I mean, I have to.
All right, you'll need to come in, or need to come into the office, or can he mail it to you? You can mail a short note to the office or come in.
I did grant a 65-day extension beginning of May. I don't know if that helps, and it's written in my latest document.
I will have Carolyn call you shortly in the next day or two and work out the details.
Okay.
All right. All right, I would like to make a motion to table application PA 040 until our next meeting. Do I have a second?
I'll second
I'll
it.
second.
And who was that?
Well, Donna,
Donna?
Yeah.
All right,
I think Bill was back there too.
okay, we have a second and a third then on that one.
Yeah.
All right. A name and your vote, please.
Jen, I.
Bill Spencer.
Bob, aye.
Isaac, aye.
Donna, I.
Carl, aye. All right,
Ed,
thank
aye.
you. Thank you to the applicant as well for bearing with us. This is a kind of an extraordinary time we're going through here. I appreciate your patience. That must be that too, I think. Thank you very much. All right, we have application 212, South Georges Hill Road, site visit. Whoop, sorry. Let's see, now this was... I'm trying to find the... All right. No, I have the resolution. I gotta find the site visit. Right in there? All right, this site visit looks like Thad did. And I guess Donna.
Yes.
Okay. Donna, would you like to give us your interpretation of what's going on out there?
Sure. Unless, Thad, did you want to do it since you wrote it up? Are you there?
I can do it.
Sure.
If you read the letter that I wrote there, essentially it's a 2.2 acre property, and they want to remove dead and dying trees, invasive species. They want to erect a shed between the house and the wetlands, and then probably most controversial might be the adding topsoil and creating a large lawn around his house, and planting a number of pine trees throughout the property. The privacy fence, we already saw it. It was piled up there in the yard. So he's got the fencing that he will install inside the property lines, about 6 inches above the ground, in order to allow free flow of any water from a major storm or something to go underneath the fence. And he intends to take circular cement pilings to put the fence posts going across. I think it was 3. Donna, was that 3 or 4 of these posts were going to be within the wetlands itself, and the rest were going to be
Yeah. Yeah, no, it's about right.
And then the other thing that he wanted to do was to take down the dead trees. There are quite a few dead trees there that that he wanted to take down. He said he was going to take them down without any heavy equipment, meaning he was going to do chainsaws and then just chop the wood up and then carry it out with wheelbarrows or something similar to that. We walked the whole property. The wetland area actually is not, I mean, if you weren't actually going to check the soil composition itself, you wouldn't really notice much of any wetland area there at all. There is a brook to the back, and the brook is completely on the adjacent property. There's also a septic field that's all grass as it is, and there's a path between the house and that septic field, which goes across, the path goes across the wetland area. So when we walked on this so-called wetland area, really we weren't leaving any footprints, or there wasn't any mud or anything. It was pretty hard, firm soil. The shed we spoke to him about looked pretty reasonable. I think Don and I suggested that if he was going to build a shed, to consider putting it on posts. Therefore, any water that was running off from the lawn would run underneath the shed and just in its normal way. It wouldn't alter the transmission of the water from one part of the property to the other at all. So I thought that was, as long as it doesn't have plumbing and electrical and all the other things. It sounded like he was just going to put a basic shed there to put stuff in. Probably the most controversial thing would be, and I don't feel like I'm really able to make judgment on this, but he really wants to increase the amount of lawn considerably and wants to plant grass seed throughout a good portion of that property, some of which borders or is maybe even in wetland areas. He wants to take out the invasive species and replace it with grass. And the neighbors around there have quite a bit of grass and lawns and so forth. He doesn't. He has a lot of trees around the house. So that I thought maybe the enforcement officer or one of the other committee members might want to go out there and really look this over. I know it's been looked at a couple times already, but it's a fairly big project to consider taking all that stuff out and then planting grass where there is wetland areas, or it's in a wetland upland area from the wetlands. So that was pretty much what we saw when we were out there.
Okay, thank you. So I haven't seen this property yet, at least. The nature of the wetlands, that it basically bisects that property pretty much in half. Is that area all wooded at this time?
Yes.
And he intends to remove all of the larger trees on it? Is that what you're saying? Or is
No,
what
my
he's saying?
My understanding was he was going to do most of the trees that were going to come down were the ones that were dead or dying.
What would you say the purpose of that wetland is? Does it collect water during storm events and then it goes off property?
Yes, it does collect some water. A lot of the water, I think, just gets absorbed into the soil. And there is a brook. There's a fair-sized brook in the back of the property. So any water that comes down anywhere on his property eventually ends up in that brook.
Any sign of, an intermittent water course or anything like that on the property? Where you could see leaves or brush moved or rabble or anything like that?
I didn't see anything like that. I might ask Donna.
No, I didn't see anything.
And
No.
and across on the far side of the property, and one of his diagrams, he has written down as, I don't know, an area suitable for lawn, or it's usable lawn or something. Is there a mowed area on the far side of that wetlands as well?
Yeah, that's
That's where the septic is.
that's where the septic system is.
That's where the septic system is.
The field.
Yeah.
Okay, so the septic lines cross that wetland at some point to get over there, I guess?
Right. Yes, and there's also two plastic tubes that go out from the
Curtain
from
drain or?
the grass area around the house go out into the wetland area.
Okay. All right, well, I hate to keep tabling these things because it's going to make for a longer meeting the next time, but I would sort of agree with your statement about the lawn possibly being an issue, and perhaps the number or the location of some of the trees that they want to remove might also be somewhat of an issue. So once again, I would recommend to the commission that we table this until the next meeting and see if we can get some additional members out there to have a look and get their insight on. What's the thought of the commission on that?
I think
Phil
that,
Spencer, go ahead.
well, no, this is Donna, and I would agree with that.
Okay.
Yeah, this is Bill Spencer. I would tend to agree with that. My biggest concern here is it looks like it's one of these cases of the ever-increasing lawn,
Yes, exactly.
Yeah.
and it's pushing right back. It's already fairly close to the wetland. I gather from the drawings that what's marked is the actual wetland boundary. So he's basically saying he wants to wipe out anything that's not actual wetland. So there's going to be no buffer between the wetland and the lawn anymore. It's going to just be lawn.
Yep, that's kind of what
Right.
that's kind of what I'm interpreting from this application as well. Were there any wetland markers on site?
No.
I don't remember seeing any.
Okay,
Can you hear me? This is Josh.
yes,
Yeah, there are wetland markers on the property.
there are, okay.
Yeah, and then when it comes to like the, planting the grass right up to the marker, we don't necessarily have to do that. And for the trees, I'm not cutting down any trees that aren't dying or dangerous. So I have no intentions of cutting down just random trees throughout the property as well. I just want that to be on the record.
Okay, appreciate that comment.
And then for the planting of the grass, we don't plan on like planting grass directly in the wetlands. We understand that's we're trying to do everything to minimize interfering with it whatsoever. We just have like a really tiny lawn right now. We have like that weird side lawn where the septic tank is.
Okay,
But apart that around the house, it's really just it's very small, and we would just like to be able to extend that at either direction, to the front or the back or both.
okay.
And then if we aren't allowed to, deposit soil, that's fine also. We could just try to plant grass by, using one of those, like, what are they called, that like make little holes or rip up the dirt a little bit so we can at least loosen it and plant grass that way.
Well, part of the issue is that we try to maintain a buffer area between the actual wetlands, soils that are designated. In town, it's a 50-foot buffer area, and occasionally we'll allow applicants to, impinge on that area to a certain extent if the circumstances warrant it, but we don't like to see lawns going right down near the edge of the wetland because lawn fertilizers and other things tend to then degrade the wetland. So that's the type of thing that we need to kind of look at a little bit closer for your application.
Sure.
So,
Yeah, I guess the only other thing that I would like to mention is that my property, like the majority of the property is the wetlands in the setback area. So
Right.
everything that's outside of that 50-foot buffer is very minimal, especially for the fact of how much land that we have there.
okay.
It kind of, the fact that it runs through the middle of the property makes it very difficult. And then there's the portion towards the top that comes down where I guess you were saying that we were planning on pushing the grass up to that point. That would certainly be nice, but yeah, I guess, if you guys want to come and look at it again, you'll be able to see.
Yeah, my suggestion would be to you to go buy a packet of those little flags that they have and sort of mark out where you're proposing to add the fill and the grass seed and so forth to before we get out there for our next visit, and then we'll have a kind of a black and white idea what you're really trying to do there.
The only problem with that
idea.
is everything is like it's like 3-4
Overgrown
foot
now.
tall pricker bushes right now. I can't even get to those areas. That's why we were hoping we could clear that out and replace it with grass, because it's all just everything's prickers and poison ivy.
Can you see the wetland markers?
Yeah, you could see the wetland marker. There's one in the back area, and there's at least 2 other ones. There might be more. I don't really go exploring in there very often.
We'll have to look, one of the things we'll look and see was whether those markers were put at the actual wetland boundary or whether they were put partway out into the buffer area. That's something that we'll need to kind of look into a little bit.
Yeah, I know the one in the back is right at the tip. It's right at the edge of the wetlands. The one
Okay.
that's like in the back of my property where the deck is.
Okay,
And that's the area I think you're referring to with we wanted to push that grass back a little further.
and you must have some kind of path or something to get to the other lawn area that's over the septic in the back? Is that?
Correct, yeah, that was,
walk-
we just moved here 2 years ago,
Yeah.
and we've kind of left everything as is, and, originally when we bought the property, we were told we could do whatever we want with it, as long as we're not building on it, but then we found out that there's all these wetlands regulations, so we really just left everything as is, so whatever is there has been there since,
Okay.
the
Did
previous
you,
owners.
did you have storm damage from the tornado that came through there 2 years ago?
Yeah, there's still trees down from that.
Okay.
Yeah, there's a lot of trees that are just hanging on, like completely bent 90 degrees. A whole bunch of trees that are, I guess detached from the roots, just hanging on, at 45 degrees onto other trees. There's a number of trees that I don't know if it was damaged by vines or just something with the soil, but they're all just pretty much like sticks, and they end up falling when it gets windy. There's a lot of those all around the property. So those are the main trees those are like the only trees that we were talking about getting rid of, is just the ones that are completely dead, that are just going to fall on someone randomly. It's just dangerous.
Yeah, are they within range of the house or any of your other structures there?
Some of them are, yeah.
Some, yeah, okay. All right, well, for this evening, I'm going to make a motion to table this to our next meeting, and we'll see if we can get a couple of more members out there to have a look at it. So I'm going to make a motion to table application 1657 until our next regular meeting, and schedule at least one additional site visit out there in the interim. Do I have a second, please?
Bob, second.
I'll second.
And who was that?
Bob.
Bob, thank you, Bob. Any further discussion?
I just wanted to clarify the main issues that you guys are having is the lawn pushing too close to the wetlands, and is that the majority of?
Yes, at this time, I think that seems to be the major issue. The other question of administrative thing is that you've applied under a maintenance and restoration permit, and I don't know if that's quite appropriate for adding the shed or not, but that's a relatively minor issue, at least for the wetlands, I would think.
Gotcha. Yeah. When I talked to, I believe his name was Chris.
Yeah.
That was the previous wetlands guy. He was saying to kind of hold off and put everything onto the one application, so that way, if we do decide to do something in the future, then it would already be included. We wouldn't have to go through the whole process again.
Okay, fair enough.
So the shed was one of those things that we were just like, we know we want a shed. Right now, everything's kind of crammed into the garage. So
Okay.
it was just future planning, and then after they talked about doing the posts instead of the foundation, I thought that was a great idea and seemed to help that whole situation.
And what do you envision the purpose of the shed being?
Just like the lawnmower. I have a lawnmower, tractor, the snow blower, stuff like that. It wouldn't be electrical and plumbing like you guys mentioned before. That was correct.
Okay, gotcha. All right, I have a motion and a second. Further questions or comments from the commission? Okay, please, your name and your vote, please.
This is Donna. Aye.
Bill Spencer, aye.
Bob, aye.
Jen, I.
Isaac, aye.
Carl, aye.
That aye.
Thank you.
All right, so I was just saying, should I talk to Carolyn about when that next site visit would be? Or
Yes, she will call you when she has a couple of times to pick from, I guess.
Okay. All right. Well, thank you, everyone.
Thank you for your input tonight.
Sure. Take care.
Application 1658, 61 Peter Road. This is relatively minor change, I believe, to the town's application for the above-ground tanks and associated construction for the town garage type of thing there, across from the town garage. John, are you with us tonight?
Yes, I am.
Would you like to paraphrase what the change is?
Basically, the tanks were shifted to the northwest side of the property, and we've actually done improvements on the water purification by adding a CDS, which is a continuous deflection separation system at the bottom of the ramp. The ramp going up to that location, we reduced the grade. It was originally like a 13.3% grade, and we reduced it to 8.3, so it's not as steep. There's also added vegetation that will be going onto the site also. But the big thing is just it's improved water purifications that we're doing to it. before going into the stormwater system.
So you have improved the stormwater system essentially? Is that what you're telling me?
Yes,
And so did you, I've kind of forgotten what the original plan was. You had a basin down at the road?
we actually added a couple more basins. We had a basin at the bottom of the road. We had a oil water separator at the top. We still have both of them. And in between that, we've also added we're adding a CDS.
Okay, and I don't believe there's any wetlands on site, correct? This is just
That
a
is
a
correct.
matter of drainage, isn't it?
Correct.
Okay,
Just picking up, yes, the runoff.
all right. Questions from the commission? No? All right. That being the case, then I will make a motion to approve application 1658 according to our draft resolution.
I'll second it.
One second.
Okay, well, I think we can go with our boilerplate one, can't we?
Well, I'm just gonna have to add all the stuff that you just said, that he just said in here. Because he didn't really put too much. I can do it.
Okay. I'm sorry. I made a motion. Did we have a second?
Yes.
Is that Bob?
No, it's
Bill
Donna. I
Spencer.
think.
We had a
I think
second.
you had several.
I'm confused. We need a
We can
second.
go Bill Spencer, or who?
Bill Spencer?
Donna Lesh, I second it.
All right, thank you. Further discussion? All right. Name and vote, please.
This is Donna, aye.
Jen, I.
Bill Spencer, aye.
Bob, aye.
Isaac, aye.
And aye.
Carl, aye. Thank you very much. Motion carries.
Thank you very much.
You're welcome, John. Good luck.
Thank you. Good evening. Bye.
You too, John.
All right, we have one new application which we will be scheduling a site visit for before our next meeting. On other business, we have a recommendation to release the bond for the rain garden at the Stone Family Cremation Services that was generated by Bill Donovan. So I believe he's been out there to look at it and recommends that we do so. Any discussion on that one? I'll make a motion to forward our recommendation for the release of the bond to the Board of Selectmen. Do I have a second?
Bob, second.
Thank you, Bob. Any further discussion or questions from the commission? Your name and your vote, please.
This is Donna, aye.
Bill Spencer, aye.
Bob, aye.
Isaac, aye.
Bad aye.
Jen, I.
Carl, aye. Thank you. Motion carries. Bills and receipts.
Bills and receipts for this month, receipts, we made $674 and we paid out $102.
All right, we brought in $674 and we spent 102. Correspondence, there was one in your package from Franz Pielmeyer. Was there anything else?
Well, we did have one from March 2nd, since we didn't have a meeting, and May 29th from Mr. Bill.
All right, several from Mr. Pielmeyer. We have minutes for, many minutes built up. Are there comments from the commission on any of those? If not, we will consider them approved. Okay, thank you very much. I will motion to adjourn, unless there are is there any other items you would like to bring forward? Oh, I asked you about the dirt pile. Did you do anything get anywhere with that?
The last time that we did anything, we we had the cease and desist, or cease and correct, Chris said. We were gonna do something, there'll be a show cause hearing scheduled for August 13th, but this was 2019. And we haven't,
I'm talking about the giant
that's
pile
what
of,
we're talking about,
Well, they
136,
got a-
140. Yes, right here.
well, they got a permit and there was a date that they were supposed to move the pile of dirt by, I understood.
Oh, the other one.
That's what I was asking about. That giant 28,000 yards of
I
dirt.
think it's passed, because I think it was during this whole this virus thing. that we was gonna
Okay.
have.
I'm gonna,
Actually, they are going to visit Mr. Ansis. When you going? Yes, remember that, yeah, okay, because they wanna go, they've never met him.
Okay.
They're going to the plaza.
okay, I asked Carolyn, if she could refresh my memory as to what the permit that we granted to, the applicant on Old Waterbury Road that has the giant stockpile of dirt there right next to the brook. I think there was a date that the commission had asked that they move it or whatever by, and I'm thinking that date is about up by now, but Carolyn, says that, Jennifer is going to be meeting with those applicants, shortly.
Kathy, they're going to, yes.
And we will send her with that information to the meeting, I guess, is what we'll do at this point, okay? Does that
Okay.
sound right to you, commissioner members?
Sounds good. Mrs.
Okay.
Donna.
Sounds fine to me.
All right. Anything else you'd like to bring forward tonight?
So what's going to happen with our next meeting? Do we know?
We don't know yet. We're praying that we don't have to do this again.
Right.
All of us.
Yeah.
As much fun as this was, I'd much rather see your smiling faces here.
Yeah, it's easier to talk, ask questions.
Yes, it certainly is.
Yeah.
And to go over documents and the like, so, that was partially why I tabled some of these applications, especially that one on West Fly Hill Road, because that's quite involved, in my opinion anyway. So I appreciate your attendance tonight, and I will motion to adjourn.
Bob Laflamme, I have one question.
Yes,
Do I
Bob.
contact a new wetlands officer in regards to brush hogging behind the cinema like we did last year? Normally, we walked it before we brush hogged it, like a team would walk in front. Who do I contact, the new wetlands officer?
Yes.
Do I come and ask?
Yes,
Okay.
you do that in case there's wildlife in there or something? Turtles?
To make sure we're not hurting any wildlife, we really
Okay.
don't see much down there, but just in case, we have like 3 people normally walk in front of the machine as it goes through it to do it. So I didn't have the number of the new wetlands officer, so I was wondering how I could get that.
Yeah, you contact her through the office, the main office number.
All right, perfect.
All right, sir?
Thank you very much.
All right, thank you all. Good evening.
All right.
Night.
good night.
Thank you. Sleep well. Stay
Good night.
healthy.